Right, so right now I'm really pleased to introduce Andy Miah, Professor Andy Miah, who's going to be talking about mashing up computing and biology from digital bodies to enhanced humans. This presentation is going to talk about the emerging era of human enhancement as an interface between the cultures of computing and biology. A word about Andy. He's Chair of Ethics and Emerging Technologies in the Faculty of Business and Creative Industries at the University of West of Scotland. That must be the only job of its kind in the world. Ethics and Emerging Technologies. Ethics and Emerging Technologies. And also, he's a fellow of the Institute for Ethics and Emerging Technologies in the USA. And he's also a fellow at FACT, which is the Foundation for Art and Creative Technology based in Liverpool. I've heard him speak once before. It's really fascinating. And I think he'll open your minds to all kinds of possibilities that you might not even have considered before. So what we've agreed is that he's going to talk for a while and then he'll answer questions and I'll chair that session. So welcome very much to Andy, and thanks a lot for coming.
Thanks very much, Sue. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you. So, well, as Sue said, my work is primarily or exclusively within the area of emerging technologies. And what that really means is about 10 years ago I started thinking about technology seriously. And that took place at the time of two revolutions that were happening, I would suggest, on quite parallel trajectories. The first was the digital revolution, and the second was the genetic revolution. So around about 1998-99, I started to write about both these areas. And over the years, this has led to me reflecting more on their common ground. And it seems to me that at the moment, some of the critical thought in each of these areas relies very much on trying to engage the other. Yet if you look at the literature, if you look at the philosophical work that underpins discussions about biology, or in my work, really bioethics, and the work that takes place in information technology, they're very much separate conversations. So what I want to do with this 45 minutes or so is to try to talk to some of the areas of common ground that I think surround this area, this body of literature. The concept of mashing up, which I think is a phrase that had a very specific meaning in computer development, but has become indicative of the way in which knowledges are shared, but also then reconstituted, is really what I would like to try to do with these two terminologies. And you could easily replace both concepts here with new media and bioethics, because all of my work is thinking about the implications of technology for humanity. So the questions that I ask, the sorts of issues that I raise, all throw up quite difficult moral provocations. And I think the examples that I use will hopefully touch on this. So the outline for this talk, which you have in your handouts or on the web, tries to again advance the literature, advance the theoretical perspective further by talking about this notion of biocultural capital. So what I want to suggest is that technology has become a mechanism through which we, in this case, I guess, amplify our assets, amplify our potential as individuals. And I think that the future of humanity will be very much based on a negotiation of those forms of capital. What kinds of things will we adopt? What kinds of things will we reject? And so the kinds of technologies that I'll mention, the examples I raise, I think are still very much at the developmental stage. We are on the cusp of deciding whether or not to integrate them as part of our social, political sphere. And so this concept, biocultural capital, I think has a number of challenges that it raises for us. Do we try to progress humanity? Do we appropriate technology in the way that seems to be happening, or do we resist it in various ways? So what I want to do is talk through, in some way, a kind of biography of my encounters through these fields. And I wanted to begin with the present. I could have given you a chronological history of where I came from and where I got to, but at the moment my work has been looking very much at art and design. As Sue mentioned, I've been a fellow at FACT in Liverpool for the last couple of years. I regularly lecture for the Royal College of Art on their Design Interactions programme. and really sought out these collaborations because I was concerned that the kinds of conversations that were taking place about the future, about the way in which technology is changing humanity, changing society, was impoverished, conceptually, imaginatively impoverished. I'm also a very big film fan. I love film, go twice, 3 times a week, and draw heavily on film to think about future of humanity. Just a couple of weeks ago in Edinburgh, it held its 5th Biomedical Ethics Film Festival, where we reconsidered Gattaca, which is a film that some of you will be familiar with. This film that depicts a world in which the majority of people are selected at birth. They're not brought into the world by chance. It's a shift from chance to choice, where parents are able to decide what sorts of characteristics their children will have. And it seemed an opportune moment, 15 years after Gattaca had been released in 1995, when we still hadn't gone through the genetic revolution. And by that I mean not just a transformation of how we think scientifically, but also how we think sociologically, culturally, and morally. A lot of the hype that led up to the completion of the Human Genome Project in 2000 was based upon this expectation that it would transform a number of things in our lives. And we see the consequences of these discussions taking place only now. I think when Gattaca came out, it wasn't quite there. So the prospect of, as was depicted in the film, of creating a pianist that had 6 fingers on each hand was this wonderful proposition about what we would like to design if this technology were available. Would we have better pianists if they had 6 hands each? Would we have more beautiful music? These sorts of questions, I think, underpin all conversations about technology, whether it's a new mobile phone or whether it's genetic selection. And so by working with artists and trying to not just draw on their work and respond to it, but to be actively involved with the construction of their design ideas, became part of that process for me. And it seemed to me that the places where high design concepts were being manufactured or initiated was within those contexts. So the relationship between art, technology, and ethics is central to my work. I realise you can't see the small text on this, but this culminated, I would say, last year in a book that I edited for Fact in Liverpool, which, for its theme for last year, was called Human Futures. So we brought together 25 authors and 35 artists and designers to think about the future of humanity, to consider ways in which technology was changing our bodies and our minds, and to originate new design principles around that. So over this 3 or 4 year period, I've become familiar with, got to know a number of people who would perhaps not collectively describe themselves as bioartists or biodesigners, but whose work is relying very much on biological artifacts. In fact, a lot of their work is relying on emerging technologies around biology, whether it's cloning or stem cell research. The kinds of people that are trying to innovate here are using and relying on principles that are still not yet tested scientifically and still very much in development. And part of the aspirations, I think this is a wide collection of individuals that are trying to do new work, and they've all got quite different political viewpoints. Some of them, I think, are deliberately trying to destabilise science. They think that science has become, particularly this sort of positivist science, the idea that we can find out what's in the world by observing it objectively as if we are separate from it. The sort of artists that are concerned about that want to reconstitute our knowledge hierarchies. So you'll be aware in the last 10 years in the UK, this focus on evidence-based research to inform policy making. I think these artists who feel that this is a